The lower self is the identification with this body. This is who I am, this physical body, and also living a reality from victim abuser consciousness. Some people actually live in constant fear, or in anger, or easily many times feeling guilt, like functioning from these lower realms. Yeah, this is why it's called the lower self, because you can't go any lower than that compared to who you truly are. As you know, this training was a module 1. It was an entry to learn ways and forms, tools, techniques to work with these lower states of consciousness. Emotional clearing, heart opening, empowering to step out of the lower self. So if you look at the vortex where there is the numbers on the sides, courage is there calibrating on 200. So the courage is the point where one can start to slowly shift out of the lower self. Without courage, without empowerment, it's not possible. So also in this training, we were practicing a lot of ways how to clear emotions, how to clear energies, but at the same time working with empowerment. Because you clear, you cleanse all the heaviness, the past that humanity carries, the most heaviest and dense of energies, which are emotions. So then that becomes a preparation to shift to a place of courage. Without courage, there is no way that person will be able to shift out of the lower self. So if you are in your inner love and you see oneness, and someone is very deeply depressed and sad, you can't tell this person, feel the love. It's very immature to try and help someone from where you are at if you don't know how consciousness works. If someone is in the lower states of consciousness, the first step is to encourage them with courage itself and empowerment. So this training, since it's an entry training, and also many of you as well were also in this process too. So this completely verifies how healing takes place. From the lower self, rising higher and higher to the higher self, planetary self, galactic self, universal self, supracausal self, and the ultimate absolute self. You might have noticed here working a lot with the lower self to clear the densities of emotions, of fear, of sadness, It's like the first part. This is why I called it module 1. And no need to rush, yes? Step by step. Step by step. From the lower self, the intention of this training has also been to awaken the higher self. The rational self is when one starts to say to herself, I want to make change in my life. I want to make change in my life. And they start finding their ways how they can make change. Until they are ready enough, and here you saw that readiness of the higher self when she comes through. The higher self, when it is fully awakened, okay, not temporary. So maybe a few of you would temporarily experience the higher self. But when that is fully awakened, that is the entry. That is the first spiritual awakening. If you're not in your higher self, you can't help anyone, not even yourself. So your higher self is the entry point, is the first awakening. And actually, this is the new humanity's consciousness. This is why we also have a school with Minda and myself called the New Humanity School, with the intention, just like here, with the intention to awaken humanity to their first spiritual awakening out of the lower self into the higher self. And here I've been really happy, deeply touched to see all of you fully realizing what the higher self is. And from the higher self, one continues their own spiraling up into higher states of consciousness. The higher self is, yes, very intense light. If you fear that light, if you fear that intensity, you're only holding yourself in your lower self. So over here, we really worked a lot with that. Some already were awakened to their higher self. But it continues, to show you, it teaches you, even for you to guide others, because that's the most important. What are we doing here? What has been our intention here? To just, do these sessions and do breath work, and what is really happening? Where are we going with this practice? Because yes, everyone would say, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. But what are you doing? If you don't know what you're doing, how can you truly help? So don't rush. Okay? Get more understanding. Study more. Okay? This is just the beginning. Okay? Study more. Learn more about yourself. Learn more about universal laws. Learn more about the states of consciousness and how energy works. This is just, it's always the beginning. It's always the beginning. Every moment is fresh. Every moment is new. We never know the next moment and the next moment. So it's new. Every moment is new. Every moment is always a beginning. So the higher self is the awakening of the inner light. This is why when one comes to the point of that awakening, it can be very intense. It can bring a lot of dizziness and the energies coming through, it's like breaking the old self, the lower self down. And when it fully pierces through, that is a big, big, big transformation takes place. It is your intuition as well, but it is because the inner light has fully pierced through. And not just in your consciousness field, but as a realization, no doubt, that you are that light, that you are the intuitive self. There's no doubt. When it's realized, when it's fully realized, there's no doubt. So if you still have doubt, then you're not in your higher self just yet. That's how simple it is. So that higher self is the intention of this module 1, for you to be in your higher self. That's why we did all this training. And then for you to help and assist others to awaken their higher self. To awaken their higher self. You first, you can't awaken or help someone awaken their higher self if you still have doubt about your higher self. And real work happens from there. So like this, it's very clear. You have no doubt that your higher self is right here. And at least you know that whatever you're bringing forward is to awaken their higher self. And that is going to be the new humanity's consciousness, where very soon we'll have everyone on this earth living from their higher self, at least. The new humanity consciousness starts from there. This is where we're going. Yeah? This is what is happening. The awakening of the higher self. And this is why there's so much purging right now on this earth. Because everyone is being moved left, right, and center only to break down the lower self. So that everyone can rise in their inner light and be those beams of light on this earth. That is how important the higher self is. And then it's your responsibility to guide others, to heal the past, to heal the pain they hold inside their hearts, to heal this victimhood consciousness. It's so far away then from who you are. Yeah? And to know how to do that, how to assist others, to encourage them, to empower them. See, this training was a lot to do with empowerment. Because if there's no empowerment, one cannot shift, cannot spring to higher consciousness. So if someone is sad, you can't be sad just because you're pitying them. You're not helping at all. If you think you're helping, it's not correct at all. It's not correct. You're not helping. Someone is sad and you're being sad with them, you're going the opposite way. It's not how it works. want to go a bit higher than the courage, because courage is the entry to the category of self-empowerment. But as one starts working with courage within themselves, you will see they will spiral higher, of course, because you complete the life cycles within you and you always reach higher. So above courage comes a place that one would like mainly start connecting with neutrality, saying it's okay. This is when one is in a place of neutrality. Something, is happening, but kind of it's okay. From that neutrality place into optimism. That's the next step. Optimism. To start saying yes to life, to start being optimistic. To start releasing the heaviness. Because everything underneath that is very heavy. But optimism brings more lightness. And it helps to continue to raise the vibration higher. Because, this lower states of consciousness is quite dense, it's quite heavy. And once we start clearing, then the guidance would be to focus on the lightness of being, to bring more light in the life. And that's the optimistic way of living. And this can be in relation with your mother, with your friend. Yeah, it can be in a class. So this I'm speaking of reality here. Huh? I'm speaking of reality fully. And what happens here from that optimistic way of living? We meet acceptance. And this acceptance is actually what blocks humanity to shift into the new humanity's consciousness, into the new human, which is the inner light awakening. And this is all usually trapped in the heart, with all the pain and suffering of the whole past life experience. Holding all those emotions of pain, victimhood, all of that. And kind of holding it inside the heart because one would have not yet made peace with the past. It could be something with your childhood. It could be any experience that caused you pain and got stuck or you haven't yet processed. And it all gets stuck in the heart. Like the heart is not open here yet. And this is why acceptance of what has happened, acceptance of what you're still holding is required. And the acceptance needs to move through the heart. So not acceptance through the mind, yeah? Many times this is a way of escaping the truth because we can say, it's okay, it's okay, it happened how it happened, I have pain and this and that, but it's okay, let me continue my life. But that experience has not dropped in the heart, has not been truly felt, have not been truly surrendered to that pain and suffering that needs to be met. If that is not met, the heart can't open. And actually, you're holding yourself from opening the higher self. Because one might take a few weeks, a few months, depending how much they're giving to this acceptance. But once one completes these cycles of all these pains that need to pass and process through the heart, then one is ready. One is ready for the inner light. And you see the inner light, it shifts into the blue light, from the green light to the blue light. This is also what is happening in the planet as well. We're shifting to the blue light. The blue light starts from the inner light all the way to oneness consciousness. So that is a point of the acceptance where many times, people would need some guidance to guide them, that they're holding themselves. And once they release, let go and surrender all that the heart is holding or within them is holding, then one would be ready to open the inner light, which is the opening of the higher self. Here is also a realm of paradise. So already when one is in the higher self, already life is already treating them quite well already. It's like living in a tropical world, a tropical island. Yeah, your life is already resonating there. It's paradise. There's downfalls too, but this is why it's not heaven yet, but it's paradise. Because there is some downfalls to it. Maybe the weather is a bit too much humid, or the island is a bit too small. There will be something which is not fully as you wish it, maybe. So all of these are realms of existence, and they're all existing within us. So the higher your consciousness, the more your reality will shift. And it goes through this process of shifting from this paradise realm. It's a location, it's a realm of existence. And with further work, with further, deeper work, because even acceptance continues to flow through, even as you open the inner light. But then you know how it starts working. Something comes up and you release it, and there's more light coming through at the same time. So with the inner light, you can say with more maturity, with more life experience, dedication, one opens the inner wisdom. So this is why when we truly accept, and if we stay with that acceptance, the energy will flow out, whatever you are releasing, and very soon after, wisdom arises. And this is usually experienced when someone would have a hard or challenge experience, and one is struggling in it. But the moment that is over and they come to peace with themselves, which means acceptance, then looks back and fully understands what happened. That is the wisdom I'm speaking about. You don't need to wait 2 years or 3 years to process. It can happen. You accept, you allow the energies to be processed, creating space for wisdom to arise. These are where the answers of life start coming to you directly. Not anymore questioning and asking, but if you pause for a moment, wisdom arises. Okay, directly. Because the answers are already coming through you from here. It's like the goddess of wisdom awakens here. For that it requires some moments to stop. And then with that space allows your answers. So So as that continues to become part of your reality, living from your wisdom, it's like things happen in your life. You accept them in that moment. You don't need to wait. The acceptance is happening in the moment. And then wisdom is arising in the moment. So that takes maturity to live your life like that, depending how much you're giving to that practice. And with enough maturity of living from your inner wisdom, this is another beautiful awakening, the awakening of the love, of the inner love. And it only can come true when one has enough maturity of wisdom. And the inner love awakens fully. So some of you here might have experienced inner love. Yeah? Might have experienced inner love. But not yet fully awakened. That's something else. Just like we can experience enlightenment, like one moment of experience and then back. So it's very different when it's an experience, but then you can't hold it because you're not yet ready or you're not yet prepared. So that we call it an experience. You experience it and then you come back to your normal state for that time being. Until you work enough with that for the inner love awakening. You can say the opening, the full opening to the inner love. With that comes the realization. If it's not yet realized, not from your mind, because many times you would hear it, oh, I know I am love, I know I am love. I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about a direct experience here. A direct experience permanently living, or having it in your background because it's always there. The opening, it's a second awakening. It's a second awakening of permanently being in that place of inner love as your reality. And when it's inquired, one would realize as a direct experience, like totally I am love. Okay, so it's a bit of a difference from an experience to an opening to an integration, an embodiment. These are all different processes, you can say. As you can see, the 500s, the inner love, here is already touching the fifth dimension. Is already starting to slowly touch, like touching the planetary self. The connectedness with the earth, the planet. So yes, when you feel love, you're automatically connected with the earth. So that, even if you're only experiencing inner love, it's good that you experience because you know your next step. You know what you're working for. Inquire, you see, like you know where you are and knowing your next steps. So working with your heart allows one to continue to cultivate the inner love. Thus, it does allow one to start connecting with the planet in a more permanent way, so to speak. And that will guide another opening of the oneness consciousness. So the oneness consciousness is when completely the division separation drops. And in your seeing, in your realization, you see that truly everything is one connected It always has been, but as a direct experience of complete oneness, your heart, your consciousness with the planet. Like the capacity of that realization is you becoming a planetary self. That is how big you expand in a consciousness way. So actually, your consciousness is already enveloping the earth. This is why then you can do planetary work. If you're not in your higher self, there's nothing much. The input is very tiny. If you're in your higher self, there is more input, yes, but if you're a planetary self, if in your consciousness you can already envelop the earth, yeah, you see it, how you expand. So it's not this body that expands, yes, it's your consciousness. When we say expand your field, because your consciousness is a field, and it continues to expand depending on your vibration and the openness of consciousness. These are like keys. You know, step by step, you complete certain cycles, and then it's time to take a new step, a higher state of consciousness, with new beginnings, new practices. Everything changes again. But at some point, you must surrender. You must surrender to something bigger. You will not lose love. You will not lose unity. But once you lose that attachment to what you have become, it's another death of the ego. Because you have built up a new identification, which is part of the process, yes. But then you must allow that to surrender. Allow that to completely break down, to open to something much more profound. And this is why it's very tricky. Here is very tricky. And it's not easy for anyone without the right guidance to shift to presence permanently. If someone is not yet in presence, in the real beingness, one cannot guide another to this state of consciousness. And this is why it's so few people who actually come here. And it's so simple. It's so simple because your being is so natural. Because it's a big transition. It's a very big transition. I think it's the biggest transition of all. From oneness to presence. It's like totally, you have to surrender all of it. All of that you have created. And the thing about this, why it's a bit hard, is because from the lower self, everyone wants to kind of, shift to the higher self. They know, they feel there's something good, they're lifting them up. But when you're in oneness, everything is already quite nearly there. You feel that, because you feel love, you feel that oneness. So it kind of feels that somehow you're already in a good place. And that's why it's a bit more tricky to surrender even the beauty of that. But always know that whatever is shed, whatever new identification you have built up to create what you are now, every moment that is shed, know that there's always something bigger. Always.